Sorry, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, my microphone wasn't situated properly. Are you serious? You couldn't hear anything I said so far?
No.
I think I should start teaching lessons on how to start vlogs very poorly. This is pathetic. Thank you very much, Susan. Thank God that I actually got you on board earlier because I would have gone on and on. So I was just saying, welcome to everybody. Thank you very much for joining African Queen Mo and Susan live from the beautiful city of Nairobi. It is currently the 24th of January, 2025. And today, we have a very interesting and serious topic to discuss. It's about gender based violence. We are exposing it and we're asking a question: why women and children are the target? Why does this target women and children? You know, and why is it that Kenya is, leading, seems to be leading in this area together with other countries? Why is it that Kenyans seem to do so well in sports as well as in gender based violence and what we call the negatives when it comes to relationships between men and women? I'll tell you a little story. I'm going to start off this story, and I think I've already told you before. But before I do that, let me allow Susan to introduce herself. Sorry, Susan, go ahead.
Hello. I'm happy to be on the show. Looking forward to some vibrant discussions on the topic. You're muted. We can't hear you.
Sorry, I got a little bit interrupted. Remember, guys, I work as a carer here. Yeah. So I have to make sure that my patient is doing okay. Yeah. Those are the kinds of relationships that we have to juggle. You may not see the person that I'm relating with, but I'm relating with somebody who needs me at this time. So, first of all, I also want to welcome all of you guys to the StreamYard. I can see that there's some people who have joined us. About two people are with us right now. And I see a few eyes on there. 3 or 4 people were joining us. Please keep with us. Stick with us. Stick with us. We're going to get right into the subject. So, why did we decide to talk about this? Gender based violence, we started this discussion last year in 2024 because we had actually lost approximately almost 100 women in 90 days. We had lost so many women. I think we'd even lost about 100 women between the months of October to December, or should I say September to December, were the deadliest. And the reports say that 2024 seems to have been the deadliest year for women in Kenya. I don't know what it's like in your part of the world, whether you feel safe as a woman, whether you feel that the women around you are safe, or whether you notice any difference between the genders in terms of security and safety. But this is a major issue and we cannot overlook it. Unfortunately, we have a situation in the country, in Kenya right now. And I think maybe some of you who are Kenyan are aware that there's a gentleman, let's not call him a gentleman, there's a murderer, yeah, who was caught. He was actually caught with luggage, and that luggage happened to be actually the remaining body part of a girl who he actually slaughtered. And it's very recent. It was just this week. Yeah. I don't know. Susan, do you want to say something about it before we show the video?
Yeah. This young man, they were in a relationship. They were childhood sweethearts. Rather, they've known each other since childhood, and they were intimate partners, and they were living together somewhere in one of the high density estates in Nairobi called Huruma. And he was actually found away from his home with a bag with human body part, not complete, but some. So
Mm-hmm.
when he was arrested, the police took him back to his home where he lives, and they were shocked to find remaining body parts of a female. And then apparently not all the body parts were there; some were missing.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so They didn't say which ones were missing. So there are two things here. The question was in that video, was he involved in organ trafficking, or
Mhm,
was it
mhm,
something else? So my view is that because of the state and the condition and how he was carrying those body parts, I doubt it was for organ sale. I think he was trying to dispose of the body. So
mhm.
and some of these ideas, some of the things that we've had previous discussions with Queen Mo, and I've been asking, to what extent does the social media, what we see on the various social media platforms, influence our behavior? We know that there are really, gory stories from the UK and America and other nations where girlfriends have been, or women or victims have been slaughtered after killing, after being unalived, they've been dismembered. And I remember one particular nasty case in the UK where not only did he unalive the person, he scattered the body parts so they were in different places, and perhaps this fellow was trying to do the same thing. So
Mhm.
yeah, so he was caught, and he was a young man, he was not old, and then he has done away with his girlfriend.
Yeah.
They'd had some disagreement, and that's what happened as a result.
So let me
Questions, of
play.
course.
Let me play.
Mhm.
Okay. Can I play the video, Susan? No. Hello. Let me just play the video.
Yes, carry on.
Okay. Let me share.
Yeah,
Let me
carry
share.
on. Yeah. Yeah.
Containing the dismembered body parts of his wife. You're watching the Prime Edition. The Directorate of Criminal Investigations, DCI, will detain for 21 days a suspect who was arrested while allegedly carrying a luggage containing the dismembered body parts of his wife in Huruma, Nairobi, pending further probe. The DCI officers who were before the Nairobi Magistrate Court argued that if John Chama Wambua is released, is likely to interfere with investigations since they are yet to recover other missing body parts of the victim, the murder weapon, as well as record statements from witnesses.
Imagine meeting with a young man carrying body parts of a human being in a sack like luggage. Well, these were the sceneries that police officers found during their patrol on Tuesday in Huruma Estate, Nairobi. Upon interrogating the suspect, preliminary investigation found that John Kiama Wambua quarreled with his wife in their house in the area before it turned tragic. And on Wednesday, the DCI officers sought orders to hold the suspect for 21 days, which the court granted.
A postmortem report is yet to be conducted. The same body was still lacking other body parts which are yet to be recovered. They are yet to conduct a mental assessment in the respondents.
The court was informed that after the arrest and interrogation, the suspect led the officers to his residence, where a search was conducted and the head with eyes got out and other body parts were found. Milimani Trial Magistrate Gilbert Shiko allowed the application by the DC officers from Starehe Sub-County to enable them to recover the other body parts that are still missing.
The incident is recovered.
It's rather gory, guys. It's rather gory. It's difficult to share this kind of information. Hi, Fia. Thank you for coming and thank you for greeting us. You guys want to join Fia? Can go into the StreamYard. You'll be able to join her in there. And it's very difficult to share this information, and we'll try our best not to share too much of it and rather discuss it more. Okay, because I know it's very traumatizing to watch it, especially when you're going to bed in the evening. But this is a situation, yeah, in Kenya, and we kind of cannot overlook it just because it's gory. The story behind this, what I heard, Susan, is that, I mean, what I read, Susan, was that this man was caught actually, he was caught by, he was suspected of carrying something that was strange by a motorcycle rider, Boda Boda. Did you read about that? The boda carried him, and he had this rucksack. And as they were riding, he noticed when he looked on the right that it was dripping. It was like, the way you carry meat, like something was dripping on the side. So what he did, the boda rider decided not to say anything to him, not to confront him, but pretended that the boda actually had a problem and he could no longer continue the journey. So what he did is that he ran somewhere and he called the police and he said, I have somebody with a suspicious piece of luggage with me. Please send your officers here right now. And that is how he was caught. So we actually should say thank you to that boda rider. Everybody should be alert and aware that, of all these things that people are always carrying in their rucksacks. There's so many people walking around with rucksacks these days, and we don't really know what they are. And bags. We see people carrying bags and rucksacks. You saw that story in the one that we showed you last year of the Somali women the Somali women, the three ladies who were murdered, who were unalived, and then the gentleman went and unalived his girlfriend, and also did the same thing by butchering her. And then he was also seen with the cameras carrying a big black bag. So people who are carrying all these bags, they should be treated with with suspicion. Yeah. And I'm really glad that they actually intercepted him. And I think the issue right now is, why is it that we are not making any headway? Why has the year started in such a negative light? Yeah. I also want to share with you, before Susan says anything, I'm going to share with you something else, and then Susan can comment on both. I don't know whether you guys are aware that there is a situation in the UK where a Kenyan woman has also been unalived. Yeah, a Kenyan woman has also been unalived. And let's just see. And here she is. Her name is Marianne. And let me share it with you. Sorry, my phone is ringing here. Sorry.
Will bring your name. If you know anything about this woman, you have any information, you know anything at all about her, you hear where people they plan say they won't buy them, or you hear anything at all. That if you hear anything at all, you should come out and say something. Because the way and manner this woman was buyed is wrong. Everybody's supposed to be safe in their house. But no, the person that married this woman, other the person is waiting for her.
Okay, let me start from the beginning. In fact, let me show you a different video, because this one is not very clear. This one is actually just a fellow YouTuber who was reacting to the same story. And let me just not share that one. There was another one. I've got a lot of them for you here today. Liza, issue of trying to organize them. But this is a Kenyan lady who actually lost her life. And yeah, let me see if I find it. It's on Tuko or something. Yes. Marianne, here. Let me show you this. This is Tuko. I hope you guys can see this. Her name is Marianne Kilonzi, and she was a Kenyan banker, and she was found dead in her London apartment. And this is her. Very beautiful young woman. She was only in her 40s. Marianne Kilonzi is a Kenyan banker who was found dead in her London apartment under unclear circumstances. She was a university graduate with an upward career trajectory before her death. And this Tuko News shared some facts about her. She's a 43-year-old, and she was found brutally killed. Apparently, what happened is that, okay, she has all these great professional achievements you can see there. She had a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science, and also then she went on to build a reputable career in the banking industry for 18 years. Then she left Kenya just a year ago in June 2024 to work as the Vice President of Trading and Working Capital Sales, Treasury and Trade Solutions at Citibank. So she had a very senior position at Citibank, and she was doing really well, and she was actually coming up for promotion at Citibank. That was like last year, right? And then all of a sudden, the police, what happened is that the neighbors heard at about 2 a.m. to 3 a.m., the neighbors heard shouting and screaming in the UK. This is in the UK. They heard shouting and screaming from her Woolwich apartment, right? So what happened is that the neighbors decided to call the police. By the time the police arrived, they found that her door was secured. Because you see, she's a bank worker, her door was very firmly secured. So they took time before they could enter. But apparently, they could hear gurgling screams coming from the apartment. Okay, so eventually, when they finally got in, when they actually got into the flat, the door was bolted. The police got in somehow, but it was too late. That's what one of the residents said. Apparently, Marianne Kilonzi, the deceased woman, was actually living with a gentleman called Brian Kiprotich at the time of her death. This is according to the Tuko article. Okay, they're still collecting information, but then they have said that the person has actually escaped. They flew away. They ran away from the country. Okay, so this person actually ran away from the country. She had a long-term boyfriend, and he was living with her. His name was Brian Kiprotich. And Miss Kilonzi basically lost her life. They're not saying that he is the person he is definitely a suspect in the case, but they haven't actually charged him with the crime yet. But apparently they're looking for him. They are looking for him. So this is a very, very sad situation, and it has affected a lot of people in the diaspora. A lot of people are talking about this case in the UK. So, Susan, let me allow you to say something there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think today we're addressing the systemic failures, things that are really causing these crimes to continue to perpetuate, that are making it, creating an environment where the crimes can continue. So basically, um, so in that case, in the Marianne's case, we can see a situation where um, her the neighbors did the right thing. They alerted the police. But what was the problem? The police came, but they were not really prepared to breach the door, or to address the emergency that was there, or were not able to anticipate the situation. So the question is what are the strategies of the first responders? How prepared are they really to deal with the situation and to come in and rescue somebody, especially when you hear that there's like screams. You know that it's likely that somebody is in danger, somebody is in a life-threatening situation, and they need immediate rescue. So the fact that they took them some time to open the door is something that is of concern. And these are the first responder strategies that really need to be analyzed and to be looked at. Because I think in those type of situations, just a few seconds makes a great difference between being alive and not alive. Again, the second thing is uh, the background of this relationship, how this person was able to escape so quickly, or the fact that they're looking for this boyfriend. um how alert were the neighbors to who it is, who this lady surrounds herself with. um Again, when we're looking at keeping ourselves safe, or what type of uh strategies do we have um in that sort of setting to make sure that we're our neighbors, our brothers, keepers. Because we know that the world is not very safe, and there should be a way of us being able to alert or notice early enough that there's something odd about the situation. um, Historically, or something that is known about violent attacks, especially with intimate partner violent attacks, they don't just occur suddenly. There's usually a build up to them. So there could have been some sort of history to their relationship. I remember reading a study where women were being told, when you get yourselves into a situation where you are under threat, or certain things, violence is being meted out against you, or even coercive control, the important thing is to report it, to be brave enough to report it to the police, so that they can have a record, and they're able to, using that particular system, they're able to sort of like preempt a situation, because they're able to see that this is a potentially dangerous situation. So they're able to stop a situation escalating to the point where somebody is unalive. So these are some of the, the systemic issues that, failures that we could talk about, because it's likely there were previous reports. There's somebody else who knew that this lady um, could have been in danger from an intimate partner. What's interesting is this person, Brian Kiprotich, is at large. The police are looking for him. I'm not, like Queen Mo said, we're not sure whether he is the assailant, but usually the intimate partner or spouse is usually the first suspect, and they need to clear that person. Whether it was a stranger attack, it's not easy to say. She was a high-ranking person in Citibank, and she had moved there. Is it like 1 year ago? So she'd not been in London for a very long time before this happened. But where she was coming from, she had worked there for 18 years and was a seasoned banker. So yeah, so we need to really look around. We need to look at those things that make it weaken systems, or make it easier for people who want to harm, you know. Yeah, and the other case was uh, of the Kenyan case, the case of Frida Joy. She's the one who was unalived and dismembered and put into the bag. What we can see that did work was the fact that the alert was raised by an observant bystander, or somebody who had come in contact with the accused person, the suspect, and there was a response that was quick enough for them to arrest the person and start the investigation. That is not always the case, and in fact, in most cases, you find that it takes a while before they're able to the investigations are able to catch up with the accused person, and by that time maybe the evidence has been interfered with. It's not good enough for it to be produced in court. There's been intimidation of witnesses, so they're not willing to speak or to say anything about what actually happened. And something that I'd like to share here is one of the challenges, or one of the systemic failures in SGBV cases when they go to court and when they're being prosecuted, is the fact that evidence is sometimes what they call the chain of evidence. So from the time of it being collected to being tested to come, and coming to court, there has to be a clear link. So if that is interfered with at any stage, it becomes suspect. So it's difficult. The court will not accept that if that is challenged by the accused lawyer, because they'll say there's a break in the chain of evidence. How do we know it was not swapped with somebody else's? How do we know that this specimen belongs to so and so? How do we know, A, B, C, D? So some of those are the systemic failures. The fact that sometimes the ball is dropped in the course of getting the evidence from the victim. It's collected, but then it is not the chain of evidence is not followed through. So it gets somebody, there's a lapse in it, the wrong person handles it. Something small like that can just immediately affect the validity of the, what do you call it, the evidential weight of that particular evidence. So those are some of the challenges. Another thing is the poor handling in investigation by the police. For instance, if the police do not handle the survivor well. So in Brian's case, in the case of Frida Joy, there was no, the victim was deceased. But in a case where perhaps the violence has been, there's like physical violence, or it's not necessarily somebody has been unalive, but they've been thoroughly assaulted sexually. If the handling of the survivor, the preferred word is survivor, is wrong by the police, then that person may not be able even to testify, because they feel intimidated by the police. They are not answering the questions correctly. They're giving room for doubt in the way they're answering the questions. They feel that they don't really want to share the story with whoever's asking the question. They start denying everything. Maybe there's some fear, and instead of perhaps the police being quick in observing that perhaps the best thing after taking the victim for the medical examination and collecting the rape kit and taking that person for psychosocial support, they're trying to handle the case themselves. And some of the police don't even know how to speak to survivors. They have their conversation is too direct, it is too harsh. I don't know about other countries, but in Kenya, the police are among the biggest people. They're the tallest people, and they're huge. And you can imagine somebody who is already experiencing a lot of fear being asked by somebody those questions. Also, even if it's a female police officer, she may also not have the right language or even the right way of handling the person because of a gap in the training. I do know that there have been efforts by the Law Society of Kenya and other, gender advocates to train the police. But the problem here is, and this is another systemic failure, is that what happens is that they may train this particular police officer, and then the police officer is transferred to another place. So they'll have to start training again, training the new police officer at this station. So the systems within the police service, they're like frequent transfers of officers. So there's no stability, and that affects the fact that information or even the training of somebody to handling somebody who's been a victim of sexual and gender-based violence may be very poor. Again, there's also the issue that in the training, and this is a systemic failure that relates to the training, is the tendency, is the issue of why we find some of the reasons as to why we find the excuses and people use, the males use, to sort of say, oh, women are the ones who are responsible for the harm to themselves. I came across this write-up by Oxfam in 2024, and it says social norms that drive violence against women and girls. And some of them include, these are the social norms, right? Women must be submissive to male family members in all aspects of our life. The second one is men are expected to exercise coercive control, that is male dominance, e.g. monitoring mobile phones and social media. And the third one is men have the right to discipline women for incorrect behavior. In other words, they are disobedient. The fourth one is women cannot deny their partner sex. The fifth one is sexual harassment is normal. Sixth, violence is because of provocative dressing. And I think you have an example of that, isn't it, Maureen? Queen Mo, about the provocative dressing being blamed for wrong behavior. 7, all women should become mothers. 8, girls are valued as wives and not as individuals. And 9, divorced women have less value. So these are some of the negative social norms that Oxfam found that actually make drive violence against women. And as you can see, these women must be submissive to male family members in all aspects of her life. it's possible that in the case that we're talking about, the one of Brian, and possibly even the case of the lady Marianne, there's that coercive control, there's that dominance, there's that misogyny, there's that patriarchy, where the woman should not have any opinion at all. And in particularly, let's say Brian's case, because we have more context on that one, we know that Brian and Frida Joy were living together. In fact, in the report that Queen Mo is showing, she's being referred to as his wife. And so that control
And the
over her
question
life.
about that, Susan, is was she really his wife? She was apparently, some reports are saying she's 19, others are saying she was only 17.
Yeah, that's a very disturbing thing, because again, I mean, that
Yeah.
would need to be established.
Who is
And
covering
they
up?
can't.
Mm-hmm.
By the way,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that can be found out. Her exact age can be found out, because that's another offense again. The fact that he's, because in Kenya you can't, marriage, consent to marriage is at 18. Yeah, we
Yeah.
have, we decided to
Mm-hmm.
protect our girls against
Yeah.
early marriage, what we call early marriage.
And and the reason the
Mhm.
reason he gives for dismembering her, unaliving her and dismembering her, is suspicion of cheating. He suspected that
Yeah,
she was cheating on him. He suspected.
you,
And he's much
you
older than
see that
she is, by the way. Hmm?
you
Anyway,
see
yeah.
you see just even
Mhm.
that response that you're giving, that he's even thinking that he's giving a legitimate argument to justify what he
Yeah.
did to his wife. He's saying that she was cheating. How can it possibly be uh,
Hmm.
right? In a previous show, I shared an experience that I had many years ago in court, where it was not my case, but I was waiting for my case, where this guy, uh, the suspect, had beaten up his wife so badly, um, and the neighbors had had enough of the fight, of this behavior. They went in, they broke into the house, found he had beaten up his wife really badly. So they beat him up too and took him to the police station. And they took the two to the police station, both the wife and the suspect. And when the police saw how badly beaten the wife was, they were, they were, as human beings, they were not happy with the situation. So anyway, the guy was arrested and charged with, grievous bodily harm. So during the case, this was now he decided he was smart enough to prosecute, to defend himself without getting a lawyer. So he asked the question in court: Did I beat her as a friend or as my wife? In other words, he did not understand that he was not supposed to beat her anyway. And that was an admission on his part, because in his mind, it was okay to beat her like that because she was his wife. And the same thing that Brian is exhibiting there, that is okay, that the wife is a chattel. He can do whatever he wants with her. You know, she has no voice, she has no rights. If he decides he's going to leave or not, it's up to him, and that the police should not interfere, because he doesn't realize that he has actually convicted himself. I mean, he's given evidence to prove that he actually did it. He's not denying that he did it.
Hmm.
His defense is that she did something, something wrong.
His
And that's
defense
what
is that's his wife. Yeah? That's his
his defense.
property.
Yes, yes, and she
He
was
could do what he
cheating.
wants.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and this is what this research, this study by Oxfam shows, that these are some of the things that make that drive violence against women. That type of attitude.
Hmm.
The women must
Hmm.
be submissive to all male family members. Uh,
Hmm.
that men are expected to exercise coercive control. That is male dominance. You know,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
they have a right to discipline, and of course, this discipline
Hmm.
has gone overboard. You know, things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah,
So
definitely. Yeah.
yeah, so
Definitely.
so these
Oh, Susan, thank you
these
for
are the
reminding
things.
us Oh, thank you for reminding us of some of your cases. It's interesting to hear real life cases, what really happens in court, when these people go to court, the things that they say. And no wonder a lot of women cannot even relate to some of the judges and magistrates in courts because many of them, to be honest, they share the same belief. They even laugh along with, the perpetrators of these crimes, and they
Yeah,
defend them. And they defend them even if they don't say anything, just by doing nothing, by treating the issue as a minor issue, by not actually prosecuting, by not incarcerating, by not punishing, then they're saying that they also condone this behavior in the society. So let me give an example also. Let me share some more stuff a little
yeah,
bit here for you. Um,
yeah. That's fine.
yeah, it'd be good to share something with you. I want to thank one of the people on here. Her name is Fia. In fact, she's right here right now. I want to thank her for sharing this video with me. She sent me a link. You guys be sending us some links. It's nice to have the information. She sent us a link. I'm going to share it with you right now. Of a man who burnt his wife to death and has the guts to now apologize. To his children. Listen to this. This is a guy in Nigeria, and he also burnt his wife to death. I mean, what is this world coming to? Hold on, let me play it now. It's quite long, so just listen, guys.
What has Enoch got to do with Enoch?
Okay, so I may have to. Some of it is in their local language, but this is a man.
What is a lighter?
Yes.
When you lighter on a
Okay, let me move it at least to where it's in English, where the woman actually starts speaking English.
in the house.
He's being asked whether he provides money for food.
Of anger.
And he said he did this out of anger and envy.
Every week, every month for feeding in the house. I don't know when you keep on taking care of major expenses in the house. Or if people know about one. Okay. I don't know what
it looks like he was taking care of it, major expenses in the house.
And she told people, some people allege that the woman told them that there was a time you told your wife that one day that you will pour fuel on her and burn her.
So you see, it looks like he had actually threatened his wife and planned and said that one day he's going to pour fuel on her, okay? Petrol on her or fuel on her and burn her. So already he had threatened her before.
There was a case of one day you your wife. Your children said that.
Yes. Even the children have said that.
Where you get to where we're report to
the sentence and the sentence now lesson because of
farmer.
So your lesson no now. Every day I have a man no now. And I have a one so upward. I
don't know whether she was coming home late at 10 or 11 or 12 times. So let me move it a bit forward to where I know he's,
Instead of killing her, you're not tired of her and you had the impetus, the guts to pour fear on her and leave the lighter. The time you went, he took you to go and get the fuel. You didn't change your mind. The time he took you to go and get the lighter, didn't equally change your mind. Violence against women. Do you think what do you want? At least the police, the state to do now. What are you asking the state to do to you? No, she's gone. And she's gone for real. No, we want you to tell us what you want. Can you feel your state, man? Can you feel your law, man? There must be something in your mind. What do you want now?
So bad.
No, feeling so bad is not the answer to what I just asked you. What are you expecting now? Can you expect?
Nobody children.
You do what?
We have to kill myself too.
Give me Jiziki. After killing your wife.
I don't know if she will die.
You don't obey.
I want to report myself to the police. So
that's you. Let this be a warning to you watching here, watching this video. It's not make believe. This is not a drama. This is a man that burned the wife to death. Today he's crying. So when you don't trust your anger, if possible, don't get married. Speak. Because he knows his faith. He might be in the end. Nobody is even going to give you opportunity to kill yourself. You can't kill yourself. You must suffer for your sin. That's it. And yes, then have you forgotten your children? I heard you're the only child. True of us.
I'm the only child.
And up till now, do you know that none of your relatives has visited these children? You didn't remember their future before carrying out this violence against her. You didn't remember that you don't have mother, father, brother from the same womb. Welcome to the music. You just played for yourself. You're going to dance it and dance it to the fullest. Congratulations for killing your wife.
Do you have anything to tell your children?
Just apologize to them. Maybe I can see them because one.
No, apologize. You can't see them again. No. Just apologize straight away. Say what you want to say.
Children, everywhere. I'm very sorry for all of you.
He says he's very sorry for what he did, what wrong he did.
I've been killed ever since I was born.
So what do you have to tell other men that have an issue of anger?
I'm trying to tell everybody that everyone should control his anger. So I couldn't control my own. I couldn't control my own. That lead me to.
Okay. That's really depressing, isn't it, guys? That's really depressing. But listening to that, thank you, Fia, so much for sending that to me. And Fia says he was probably abusing his wife and children for years. And they're speaking Igbo. Yeah. Yeah. Hi, Ida. Hi, Ida. Thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, Ida is also joining us from the US and Fia is joining us from the UK. So we have the diaspora community with us here. And yeah, invite your friends. Let's join. Let's talk about this issue. It's so sad. You saw what happens. Now, this is happening globally. Yeah. This is gender-based violence and women are the target. Why are we the target? Why are women the target, guys? Ida, what do you think? I'm going to target Ida because I know Ida has something to say. Ida knows about women's groups. Women. Ida is a very strong woman, and there was a time when I was in a university student, and Ida and I were running a women's group at the university. So we go a long way, and I love this woman Ida so much, just like I love Fia too. So it's nice to have my friends in the comment section, but I also want you guys to invite other people to come on board. Yeah. Just come on board, invite people to come on board so that we can discuss this. Yeah. Susan, do you have anything to say about that? That case of that man who he poured fuel on his wife and burnt her to death, guys. That's the story. He burnt her and left the children. I just love the way he's being interrogated by those women. Wow. I wish we should do that here in Kenya.
Yeah. My take in terms of the systemic failures, one is that definitely, as Fia acknowledged or said, there is history of threatening. There's history of violent behavior in that home. Possibly, we speculate, she may or may not have reported these cases to the police. So that should be a red flag that this lady was in danger, particularly the detail about what he intended to do to her, pour fuel on her. And he did exactly that. Exactly what he said he was going to, the threat was, is exactly what he did. And like in some countries, like in England, that sort of thing, that would be a red flag immediately, and then there would be some monitoring over that type of situation. Obviously, there'd be one of the systemic failures would be insufficient resources or in insufficient investment actually in preventing sexual and gender-based violence, because you need quite a lot of resources to be able to intervene or to take steps to preempt this type of situation arising. The very fact that he said and he did exactly what he said, what he was going to do, and the children are, are the ones who gave that information, that that's what he said. That's what I gathered from that. The other thing is that this definitely there should have been some intervention, systemic failure again, even from the community, even from his. This is an African country where the relatives, there's respect of seniors and stuff like that. They could have been able to respond to that situation. They could have spoken up and tried to intervene to try to mediate the situation. Um, Again, we don't know whether she was a church-going person, because again, hopefully she could have found somebody to confide with in that system. And the question is, when somebody cannot share information, when their lives are at risk or there's so much danger around them, the question is, who is failing? Is it the system that is failing, or is it the culture that has failed the individual? Like we said earlier, there are certain things that drive violence against women, and it's that misogyny, that males thinking that they have the right to dominate against women, and so they are entitled to treat them as chattels, and they can do whatever they can. The issue of anger management, again, this is somebody who again, I think there's a comment, or one of the viewers said that this is somebody, or I think it's actually the lady who was interrogating him, saying, well, if you couldn't manage your anger, then you shouldn't have bothered getting married in the first place, because she was now pointing to things like maturity and stuff like that. And the question is, again, systemic failure, when people are being cancelled to get married, what type of things are they being told? Are they being told how to manage stress? Are they being told how to cope with stress? Are they being told how to treat their spouse? And obviously, we can see the tensions there between that, perhaps that advice that they were given at counseling, and then the preconditioning, or the prevailing factor of custom, and the way the males think that women are chattels and they can just treat them however they want. And so the fact that women are supposed to put up with their anger, they're supposed to put up with whatever it is the man is expressing about it. Now, the other thing is apologizing to the children. That's what I understood. He was apologizing to the children after having done that. Again, in a situation, if there had been earlier intervention in that type of situation, if the police had responded perhaps to reports that this was prevailing in the home, they would have tried to separate the two, especially on hearing the level of violence that was being thought of. The fuel, and burning is a terrible way to die. And if she had survived, it would be even worse. He intended to really, really maim and harm this lady. When you're talking about burning, and even when you think about it, when you burn something, it's like this is something that needs to be destroyed completely. There's supposed to be like no sign of it left. It's a terrible way to think. And he is apologizing to the children. but it's a little bit, it's too late, because the children are witness, they heard what he said, and they are aware of what he has done to their mother. So these children need a lot of counseling. And one systemic failure would be if these children are not counseled, and if there's no place of safety for them to go, because the dad is likely to be incarcerated. So where will these children go? Probably to an institution or something like that. So now they're going to be institutionalized or something like that. Or if the system is not working well, they could actually end up on the streets. So some of the repercussions of systemic failure, or when the systems are not working, they are so devastating on the lives of the survivors or victims. Let me call them survivors. No, the victims of domestic violence. The children too are victims, and actually they survived their unalived mother. Yeah, I just thought those were examples of where we can see the systems not really working. And again, perhaps there's insufficient investment. There's unskilled support, not unskilled, insufficiently trained police officers or children's officers or whoever it is, so they're not able to intervene on time to remove the children actually from that situation, when they were even talking about the dad saying there's a threat, and when they were saying that their dad, or they knew that their dad had threatened to kill the mother, to unalive the mother using fuel. That in an ideal situation, uh, children's officers should have been involved. If the report was made on time, they hear that this is the threat and that sort of thing, there would have been intervention actually from the children's officers. There would have been intervention from the police to separate the two completely. The man could have been charged with threats, particularly something so bad, and also she could perhaps get a protection order from the courts to stop him, coming within a certain vicinity of where she's living with the children. But this type of characters from the description are usually very, very tenacious and aggressive, and they need to be handled with a lot of skill, because they will find a way. They must win, and that's why I think he made sure that there was nothing left of her. Yeah.
Wow. So depressing. So depressing. But it's nice to hear it from you as a professional, with the legal, who has an understanding of the legalities of everything, and also understanding the process and understanding GBV in terms of how it progresses and where are the red flags and what has been missed and who should have done what. It just seems like it's just impossible. I don't even know how people get to the point of actually, taking the life of another person. It's just unbelievable. And some people are even planning it. They sit there and they plan it. Yeah. There are people who, like in the UK, we have this situation. Yeah. Let me share with you now something that's outside of Africa a little bit. Right now, we have these people in the UK who are called the Pakistani grooming gangs. They've been targeting Sikh girls, Sikh, not ill, but the Sikh as in the religion, in the UK for over 50 years, say the report. Okay, that was this report was in November 29th, 2018. Look at all the faces of all those men, and if when they talk about grooming, they actually they take these girls, they take the girls and they sexually, what do we say, they defile them. They defile them because they're underage, right? They're defiled. They're not raped, I think. They're defiled. 13-year-old, 12-year-old, and they start them very, very young. Yeah. And the Sikh Mediation and Rehabilitation Team Charity made public a report titled the Religiously Aggravated Sexual Exploitation of Young Sikh Women Across the UK. The exploratory study has found that the grooming gangs consisting of Pakistani Muslims has been systematically targeting Sikh girls of Indian background for almost 50 years, with the earliest cases dating back to the 70s, guys, to the 70s. Yeah. So right now we have a case where in Rotterdam, there's sexual abuse case right now at the moment in a place called Rotterdam in the UK. There's a sexual abuse case in which more than 1,000 young women, they call them young women, they're girls. They're girls because they're from the age of 12. Yeah. 1,000 kids victimized by Pakistani grooming gangs. It came to light, and the issue of men actually raping and exploiting girls, both white girls and also their own girls, you know. And now in this particular case, the UK population is up in arms because the police has kind of been ignoring it as long as it's happening in their communities, in the Pakistani or the Sikh communities. But as long as it touches on the natives, the white children, then it becomes an issue. And you saw Elon Musk come and actually challenge the UK Parliament to go and do something about this. And the UK Parliament also responding in a very negative way, forcefully, denying that they are overlooking the matter, or, and you see, there's the Telegraph. We must secure justice for thousands of girls and also ensure that this type of industrial scale cover up isn't repeated. Okay, this is 16th September 2024. Still, too many people will not admit to the child grooming gangs. Okay, and this is Suella Braverman who was talking that time. Suella Braverman, she says, still, too many will not admit the truth about child grooming gangs. Okay, I'll play you a video about what a grooming gang means. What is a child grooming gang? But these are people who are basically grooming children to actually participate in sexual acts with older men who are old enough to be their fathers and grandfathers. Yeah. And Fia is saying here, what is Fia saying? Unfortunately, some men find it difficult to live with traditional beliefs, marriage, and modern times. Some women are taking on the role of providing. Their men don't like it. Oh, I see. This is in reference to the Nigerian case. And by the way, Ida also said something about that Nigerian case, going back to it, that Ida says that women are becoming independent and creating a cultural shift in the minds of traditional men, and their responses are outrageous. She goes on to say there's a mentality of ownership as property for these men. Yeah. And that's the same thing, I believe, with these grooming gangs, these Pakistani grooming gangs. They believe that they own these girls, they own their women because of traditions that have been oppressing women for decades, for centuries, for, such a long time. And we have to look at our traditions also in light of what's happening currently, the exposure to online pornography and things like that. And that is also grooming men and young boys to believe that women's bodies are for their own pleasure. Your body, my choice. You see, women's bodies and girls' bodies are not to be respected. They're there to pleasure men. And that is actually what pornography is actually stating. That is what it's showing. And it's saying now that there's this gentleman I was listening to, and he was saying that now there's studies that have shown that girls as young as, or young people as young as 11 are actually exposed to pornography on the internet. Yeah. As young as 11. And so that is actually formulating and shaping their minds and their belief systems and their value systems. And the reason he says that these grooming gangs are not being confronted is, firstly, they state like they don't want to show like some sort of racial bias towards like Pakistanis. They don't want to create a situation where the UK, being politically correct, they don't want to create a situation where the UK looks like, appears to be focusing on one specific group of people. But this gentleman actually says the problem is that in the society, this grooming has been taking place between the white society members themselves. Yeah, this is where white, culture, Europeans, the white people themselves have been taking advantage of their own children a lot. There's been a lot of that. We know about incest, and we know, about that, taking advantage of girls, the dress code for women, what's acceptable. Girls have been known to be very conscious about about themselves, about their bodies, about how they look, because the industry, yeah, focuses on sexualizing young children, sexualizing young girls before their time. So young girls start to mature early, and they consider their value based on how they look, how their bodies look, how attractive, sexually attractive they are to the opposite sex. From as young as 11, 12 years old, young girls are exposed to sexual activity with older men, not with boys their age, with older men. Yeah. So that's what he calls grooming. He says that it's complete hypocrisy. It's because many of them are also could be engaging in the same. And if they were to target, for example, the Pakistani, or a specific community, it means that they're being hypocritical because they're also not addressing their own. We've heard a lot about what's been going on in the church, in the Catholic Church, yeah, about the grooming of, the sexualization of young children, about little children who have actually even lost their lives because of the sexual appetites of older men. So this is something that has gone in the culture for too long, and it needs to be addressed. Suzanne?
Yeah, just going backwards, um, what some laws in different countries requires that the first responders must report when they suspect there's been a sexual assault. They must that case must go to the police. But we find often, depending on who the person is who has been caught at it, they may get away with it. If we think about the grooming that was taking place in the Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein, and a case where, what's her name? This lady, forgotten her name. Anyway, there was a lot of grooming. They were being taken to this island. These underage girls were being taken to this island. I think it was a famous case. Uh, Ghislaine, I think she's called Ghislaine, and she was the one who was sort of attracting the attention of the young girls, and then she would take them to be part of the party. And she was actually convicted. And so when we find that, and it took a while for that case to be unraveled. That's why I brought it up, because it involved a lot of senior people, very rich people. We saw some names and which were being name dropping there, of some very senior, respectable people, people with a lot of wealth, who are engaged and involved in that whole scandal of um, grooming and in having some sexual exploits with underage girls. So that's another systemic failure, where we find that there's intimidation by people of class, where the law is not practiced or is not being handed out, not being handled by the police and the powers that be in the right way. So it applies. It depends on who is doing the wrong thing, which is not the way it should be. The other thing is, when you talked about uh, social bias, again, that's a systemic failure, because they're so afraid of being politically incorrect that they would rather not enforce the law. So the law becomes like a piece of paper, because they're afraid of facing up to the fact that this, even though this is their culture, it is not acceptable. I remember when I went to school when I was in university, there was situations where some mature students would come with their, like, from Pakistan. I remember this particular case was from Pakistan. He came with his wife from Pakistan, and she was underage. And the British authorities said, "Look, this girl is underage. She cannot be your wife. We don't care what they're saying in Pakistan, but here in England, she's too young to be your wife. So you have
Yeah.
certain options. Either you go back, or you go to school, and we keep her here, and she goes to school separately because she's supposed to be in school. She's not supposed to be anybody's wife. So he opted to pursue his master's because that's what he was doing, and she went to school. And I remember the lament was that, the British authorities were interfering with his marriage. But the truth of the matter is, I mean, he told, these were conversations now we were having in, just among us as overseas students. And I remember registering in my mind that, but she's too young to be your wife. And when you come to another country, you have to comply with the laws of that country. But if you're finding a situation like that was applying to somebody who had no power, but if you have power, they don't care to enforce it. And right now, because of the wokeism and the political correctness, people are so afraid of speaking the truth and saying this is an underage child. So rather than face that reality, they'll say that is their culture. Let them do what is right. And I'm talking about my example was something that happened in the 80s, in the early 80s. Um, 84, 85, 86. And the British government was quite strict about that then. But now we're seeing in more recent years where that laxity is occurring. The other thing is, I agree with, I'm not sure whether it's Fear or who's the other one, the other person on the, I'm
Ida.
not able to see the
Ida.
name. Ida.
Ida.
Yeah, who talked about the failure of males to to move along with the way that the dynamic movement in society, the shifting of
That was
gender
Ida.
roles.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the expansion of gender roles. And so they're stuck in one place because it suits them. But it doesn't suit them that women are now more independent. They cannot be controlled economically because they have their own resources. They cannot be controlled emotionally because perhaps they've gone to school and they have learned how to reason and to answer questions and to do things like that. They know their rights. They can rush to seek justice and stuff like that. So things have changed, but the men seem to be lagging behind. But if you ask me, my honest, and this one in my own opinion, is that it suits them to want to be in that space where they're dominant and women are not thinking. But that is not the real space. Today's space is where women are educated, women are aware of their rights, women are, they have economic power, and stuff like that. The other thing that I
Yes,
wanted
that
to
was
talk about,
Ida,
yeah,
definitely. Yeah,
was
she's talking
about
about
the
the
shaming.
mentality of ownership as property. Women
Yeah,
are seen as property, And Fear,
yeah,
let me just read a few comments and then you can respond to Fear as well. Fear was saying, that these men, talking about the Pakistani men, these men have wives, daughters, and grandchildren while living in the communities. What a disgrace! I agree, Fear. What a disgrace! And their pictures are everywhere. Their faces are everywhere. Everybody gets to know that these are part of what they call, quote unquote, grooming gangs. Actually, these are rape gangs. Let's call them that. That's really what they are. Yeah. And Ida is
yeah.
agreeing with
Mm,
the statement of incest and pornography. And actually, Ida also clarifies that child protective services in the Western Hemisphere is basically based on these kinds of abuses of children. Incest,
mm,
yeah, yeah, and rape of underage children. That's what the whole child protective services in the Western Hemisphere is basically based on. And she knows what she's talking about, you know? Yeah. And
yeah.
she's also saying the
That's
girl
that.
child, Ida is saying the girl child is violated and abused in every society in the world. Oh my God, Ida, you need to come on board. Hmm? Women have to become more aggressive, yeah, in tackling, no, the leadership, in taking the leadership of how, yeah, and taking the leadership, and that's how they'll be treated and respected. And that's true. Women just have to take up leadership. I agreed, Ida. I agree. You know, you and I were supposed to have been leaders and we should have continued to lead, you know? And when we talk about leading, it's not just in the community. We need to take those high posts. We need to take those very high posts in politics where you actually shape things, where you
Mm,
actually have access, where you have access to the whatever, to the protection, you know, to the tools. Yeah, otherwise, and the
yeah.
resources, like Susan has mentioned. Okay, Susan.
Yeah, I was just going to add that this male privilege that really enables this type of oppressive situation to perpetuate. Male privilege, and then they're saying religious defense when they're saying, "Oh, this is their religion. We don't really want to interfere with it." I mean, and again, that is something that is unacceptable because then the white policeman would not interfere on the grounds that this is their religion, and this is the way they live, and this is their society, and this is their culture. Again, those are the excuses, that those are the reasons, and the things that drive sexual and gender-based violence against women, because religion now in this situation is being used as a defense, and yet the result is something that in normal circumstance it should not be acceptable. I mean, this is England in the 80s and England in the 21st century, which is completely different, where they're allowing it. And you'd think people would move ahead, but it looks like they're going back, because it looks like in the 80s, in my experience, that experience I was sharing, the England of the 80s was more protective of children than it is right now, notwithstanding the fact that there are quite good laws to protect children. That because of this context and the religious protection and the political correctness and perhaps the wealth, they're not talking about the wealth of those guys, but it's likely there's quite a lot of money in there. There could also be corruption, which is affecting the decision making process. And then the other thing is, I wanted to talk about was one of the reasons why the girls, especially the Asian girls, would not talk about it or would not come out and say anything about it, and why it has lasted for 50 years, is family honor. You know, they have known it's wrong. They have known it's wrong. In England, it's wrong. Maybe in Pakistan, it's not, because the laws are different there. But in England, it's wrong. And so it's because of the family honor, the shaming in the community. So it's kept as like a community secret. So they don't really want to talk about this is going on. And really, it's really perpetuating really bad habits. That's pedophilia, and that sort of thing. You're not able to have a relationship with a mature woman. So you prefer the young girls, you know. I remember here in Africa, in different parts of Africa, there was a story that if one had HIV, that if they had intercourse with a virgin, that they would be cured. I don't know whether you remember that. And I asked myself, when I heard that, because at that time I was very active in doing child protection, I said this is just an excuse to molest underage girls, to
Yeah,
victimize virgins. Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. And it's almost like a competition. Who is going to be first, to break that one? It's as if they use girls and women as pawns because it's like men are competing with each other. So it's about who's going to get to this woman first. Who's going to get to this young girl first? Who's going to make this little young girl a woman first? I don't understand the mentality of some of these men. Of course, it's not all of them. There are many also who are speaking out against it, and I'll show you videos of that. But yeah, thank you so much. And it's actually, yeah. Ida says that she remembers that, Susan. Yeah, she does remember that about people sleeping with or having sexual intercourse with young virgins. And it's the same thing, for any excuse. It's like for any excuse they'll do that. You know Even to get rich quick, they'll probably think that they should do that. It's just madness, complete craziness. So anyway, let me see if I can present something else as well. I'll share the screen here. Oh, let's move down to South Africa, you people, man. This thing is bad. It's all over the whole world. It's everywhere. It's like you can't run from it. Here's a South African guy. Hey. Uh-huh. South Africa, you're not going to be left behind, are you? Huh? This is a South African man who ended his girlfriend's life. Her name is Findiswa Mpomboshe. He actually ended her life for wearing a bum short at the beach. A bum short at the beach. It's not like she wore it to work. She wore it at the beach, and I bet you she was probably with him. Yeah? This is the young man right here who ended her life, ended this lovely woman's life. Yeah? I mean, there are some things which are just unbelievable. You're going to end the life of somebody because of wearing something that you don't like? Something that you actually don't like. You're going to actually end her entire life. Yeah? This is the Kenyan over here. Oh my God. I don't even want to show him, by the way. This is the Kenyan over here. I don't want to show him. But you're going to go ending the life of somebody just because of what they're wearing. I'm telling you the truth. You know, our lives have just become very cheapened by everything that's going on in the world. It's very sad. It's as if life is no longer sacred. People can just do as they wish, but they think that they can, but they actually can't because, unfortunately, remember this guy who unalived his girlfriend in the USA? Yeah, there was this. He was actually extradited. Here's this person. 5 weeks ago. Oh my God! Let's see this.
A family in Nairobi's Embakasi area is pleading for justice following the horrific murder of their daughter in Delaware in the United States. Tracy Nyariki, a 31-year-old nurse, was found brutally killed with her dismembered body discovered in a car. The prime suspect, her ex-boyfriend, Norbert Matara, he's been arrested and is expected to face first-degree murder charges. The tragedy, which struck just 4 days before Christmas, has left the family devastated. Ben Kirui with that tragic story.
The tragic murder of 31-year-old Tracy Nyariki has left her family devastated. As they were preparing for Christmas celebrations, news from relatives in the United States shattered their joy. Tracy, a nurse in Delaware, had been reported missing. As such, led investigators to a grim discovery in northeastern Maryland.
My auntie told us they're looking for her. And gold alert ikatolewa. We were told she has been found, but hatukuambiwa to what extent ilifanyika.
On Saturday, we got the one of our cousin told us that she was missing. So we were quite worried. Very worried actually. Yeah, and on Sunday night, we were told that she was no more.
Tracy was the backbone of her family, providing unwavering support for her ailing father, who has been bedridden and unable to speak or walk since a stroke in 2010. Her sudden death marks the third tragedy for the family in recent years, following the loss of their mother in 2013.
Every single time we used to talk, she was like, Dana, tatumia dadi kitu. Every time they used to talk with my dad, dad alikuwa anamwambia ana kitu kwa mfuko, so anamtumia pesa.
Atamaliza miaka mingi kufanya hiyo kazi. Ndiposa naona sasa nilikuwa nimeona mwangaza ile ya kutusaidia madawa hata hasa ya dad na mambo mengine ya kifamilia.
I don't get why it happened to our family, because we have a lot of questions. Because now look, my dad is like, I lost my mom first in 2013. My dad got sick 2010. Sai Tracy's gone. I don't know.
Authorities in the United States have linked her ex-boyfriend, 32-year-old Norbert Matara, as the prime suspect. Matara, who is already in custody, was found near his vehicle in Aberdeen, Maryland, where investigators discovered Tracy's dismembered remains. While the motive for the murder has not been officially established, Tracy's family believes the jealousy may have driven Matara to commit the heinous act. Just a few months ago in August, Tracy had celebrated a traditional wedding with another man.
Waliachana kitambo sana. Kitambo sana, like 2 years ago waliachana. So Tracy moved on with her life.
It might be when he saw that he had moved on. I think he saw that he had lost the chances with her completely.
US police intend to charge Matara with first-degree murder. Meanwhile, Tracy's family is appealing for justice even as it grapples with the logistical and emotional challenge of transporting her body back to Kenya for burial, plans which remain uncertain as investigators are yet to release her remains due to active investigations surrounding her murder. Another Kenyan man accused of killing his girlfriend in Boston and fleeing to Kenya was extradited back to the United States last year. 42-year-old Kevin Kang'ethe was extradited from Kenya to the United States for allegedly murdering his girlfriend, Margaret Mbitu. Maggie's body was discovered in a parked car at Boston's Logan International Airport 2 days after she was reported missing. Ben Kirui, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Whoa, 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 guys, whoa, whoa. It's so embarrassing, to say the least. I don't even know whether to say it's sad, beyond sad, it's embarrassing. Susan, please.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, in terms of systemic failure, when we look at Tracy's case, definitely there was a reason why she had separated from this ex-boyfriend, and it was 2 years ago, which means that this fellow could have been stalking her or doing something, was following her manenos, her life, either online or whichever method she was using to find out what she was doing. Because you can see he's responded to this just after she had conducted a wedding with a husband. So since he was not able to marry her, in his mind perhaps was, if she's not marrying me, she's not going to marry anybody. So that was what the decision he made. And again, that is supporting the argument or the reasons why domestic violence is meted against women. The drivers to that, the ones that were identified by Oxfam. Woman is a chattel. She's mine. She cannot, until I give her up, she will, she cannot. She's not entitled to think about anything else. She can't move anywhere else, and stuff like that. So, I'd be a little interested to know whether or not she had reported this guy for stalking, or whether he'd been bothering her. This is the ex-boyfriend sending her messages. Maybe that will come out in the court case because he has been arrested. Let's hope. And the other thing I found that was really good is that when they reported that she was missing, a gold alert was put out for her. But one thing I did not find very good was, this is a systemic failure, is that they did not share with the family immediately that even though they had found out that she was not alive. So they found out later. So their hopes were lifted and then dropped down again. So that is something that is not very good. The other thing is now when they compared it with this case of Kevin Kang'ethe, and the interesting thing is, anyway, Kevin Kang'ethe, which is a previous case, Kenyan, who was able to escape and come back. I think he came back to Kenya and then he was sent back again when they arrested him. He also unalived his girlfriend. So this intimate partner relationship, what is the issue? Is it, like I asked previously, is it that the school system or our education is not working? In our school, we're not being taught how to cope with stress. We're not being taught how to communicate with one another. We're not being taught how to manage our anger. I remember there was a time life skills education was part of the curriculum here in Kenya. I'm not sure it still is. But when we did some work with Queen Mo, and we actually looked at the stuff that was being taught. And it was good stuff because it was helping people to problem solve, to think critically, to manage stress, to cope with anger. But it seems like that is a problem, and it means our education system are failing because they're not helping us to think critically, to manage situations, to mature as we go from class to class. So even this shift in thinking, that women are, the system is also failing in that it is not passing on strongly enough the message that things that society is dynamic, that it is changing, that women's roles, the gender roles are changing, that women are able to do more things on their own than they used to be able to do before, um, and stuff like that, and help the males really to respond to the changing dynamics in a more positive way. That is it is something that needs to be addressed also. That's a systemic failure. The two men, definitely, apart from going from one extreme, like Queen Mo said, for somebody to decide to just unalive, that is a very, very, very extreme action. Definitely points to some level of is needing some sort of counseling to deal with issues like rejection or whatever it is. Um, because for you to go from one point to another extreme, that shows there's something completely wrong. So there's a need for counseling there. And who noticed that these people needed counseling? What was the place of society? From the way Tracy's family were responding to this Matara guy, Nelson, the ex-boyfriend, you could tell that they were not fond of him at all. They had nothing really good to say about him, probably because they knew what type of person he was. And probably he was very, very stressful to their late sister because of his demands and stuff like that. So the reality of the situation is that the systems need to appreciate the things that drive males to harm women. And they need to be aware of them sufficiently in order to retrain or even come up with ways of early identification so that things do not get to this state. Nelson Matara, we have another case of dismemberment here. So we know for sure, at least the cases of dismemberment we've seen so far, uh, in my view, it is to conceal. It is not to traffic organs, because organ trafficking, from what we see in the movies and what we see in documentaries, is that if you have to keep those organs in a very sort of sterile, sort of, is it frozen and stuff like that, so that they are viable when they're, being transferred or being transported into somebody else. But when there's somebody is just dismembered and left, I mean, different parts are put here and there, it clearly shows that the intention is to conceal, in my view, rather than to traffic. And these are really, really sad stories. I mean, we just think about them and wonder.
Yeah.
It gets very
Like Ida
depressing.
is saying here, you're so right, Scissors. Ida is saying that's the mental health piece that must be addressed. We do, like what you're talking about, the curriculum, about managing anger, managing emotion, critical thinking. Ida is saying that's the mental health piece that must be addressed. What is wrong with our society? Why are some men, many men, going around dismembering women, murdering and dismembering women? Where are they getting the guts to do that? What happened to faith? What happened to religion? What happened to worshiping a God, a higher creator? What happened to morality, ethics? What happened to empathy? What happened, to confidence, to self confidence? I don't understand. We have a very broken society. And as a parent, if I was a parent of a young Gen Z today or young girl who needed, who was looking out right now, I'll be worried. I'll be super worried because it's usually a lot of these younger women from the millennials coming down. I'll be super worried about what's going on, and I would probably even ask them to look outside of the country, because we have a very unhealthy population in Kenya. I don't know where it's coming from. It's terrible. It's irritating. It's annoying. It's painful, and it's criminal. More and more, most of all, it's criminal. Totally criminal. But it's unfortunate, because if our government does not address it, if the people in government who are, who have the role of protecting the citizens, if they don't take it seriously, yeah, then they carry the responsibility and the weight going forward. They carry the responsibility going forward, yeah. And now, as Fia is saying that she has to leave, and want to say thank you so much, Fia, for being with us. We understand that you have to leave. People have families, and people don't have help, especially people who are living outside the country. They don't have help. Those of you who are still with us, yeah, let's continue chatting here. And if you're in Kenya and you have time, just join us. We're just going to be here maybe for a few more minutes, maybe another half hour there. Before we wind up, because this is a big subject, and we have so many cases to discuss. It's a bit late, it's weekend, and we want to take the time to discuss things that are important in the society, things that are shaping your security and mine, things that are shaping our mental health. How do we discuss, Ida, how do we even discuss this mental health problem that we're seeing? Because as you can see, the mental health issue is all over. It's global. It's not just in Kenya. It's everywhere. Let me present Susan. You cut you short. Let me allow
Yeah,
you to finish, and then I'll present.
I just wanted to talk about the effects of social media. I was just looking at the cases of the mass shooting, the recent Antioch High School shooting case in the U.S. And what there's a 17-year-old called Solomon Henderson who went into the cafeteria and shot a girl, 16-year-old girl, and injured a male who was 17 years old, and then he unalived himself. And they found him with when they were investigating, there was a history of this guy. Apparently the police had gone into their house in 2023 and found 2 guns, and the parent had sort of like covered up, because apparently one of the guns that was found was his and not his father's gun, but the father said it was his gun. So when they found the manifesto of this guy, one was 288 pages and the other one was 50 pages. One thing he said was that he wanted to unalive at least 10 people to defeat a previous shooting in another school. So he wanted to beat that record. So there was a shooting, previous shooting in a school in Nashville.
Wow.
Yeah,
My God.
Nashville.
Just like I
And he
asked
wants,
earlier, is it a competition? Apparently it is. Susan. Sorry, I had to interrupt. I
yeah,
guess that's what I'm hearing. Huh?
yes. So basically, that's what he said. And when they found his manifesto, it had some really, really, really mm, not so pleasant things to say.
Mm-hmm.
He was obsessed with mass killers. He had a bad relationship with his parents. Um, he didn't have a good self-image. He was black, but he associated with the white supremacists and said he wished he was born white. So
Oh.
his go-to space was white supremacist online groups. That's who we would interact with online. So the question here is, and the reason why I brought this up, is that this is where the social media is like fueling certain behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, what the report I saw said, there's a link between the police are investigating a link between uh, the effect of social media on this young man's behavior, because he's saying that he wants to beat a record of a previous mass shooter. Right? He was trying to do a mass shooting as well, but he wanted to.
Wow.
His aim was 10. And then what his go-to place on social media was the white supremacist online groups.
Hmm.
And so he would say things that I wish I was white. And he found connection in hate. So this is something that's been fueled. And in previous programs, we talked about these really toxic uh, um, spaces online, the masculinity spaces, the toxic masculinity spaces and stuff like that. So to what extent does the social media really impact? And is this a systemic failure? And I would say it is, because if, for instance, let's go back a bit into this case. First of all, this guy, there were red flags. He had been found with 2 guns already. And it seems they were not watching him too well. And apparently, the metal detector that the school had did not detect that he had a gun. And they were using a system, an AI system, which failed to detect that this guy had walked into school with a gun. So that's another systemic failure. And they're saying that, that was one of the questions, is how was he able to walk into the school with a gun? A failure at home as well is, what is this guy doing with a gun? And how come he left home with a gun? What was happening with the parents? The other thing is failure with the police. This guy had a record. They had already gone into his home and found 2 guns. So how were they monitoring this young man? How were they monitoring the parents, to make sure that this guy does not take the guns to school? And so he ended up killing this poor girl, 16 years old. I think she was from Guatemala or something like that. She was an immigrant, and just that was the end of her life. And writing this really grotesque manifesto. The question again is, how was he able to write 288 pages of hatred and another 50 pages of hatred and gone undetected? And his parents were none the wiser. And from the snapshots of what the videos was saying about, I don't really want to say some of the things he was talking about, but it's really dark stuff. And the parents didn't seem to have noticed any red flags in his behavior, and the mass shooters, all of them, they catch their parents by surprise. All of them catch their parents by surprise, but when later on they say, okay, he has a habit of locking himself in the room, he doesn't communicate well, he doesn't do ABCD, he doesn't do something like that. But after the first few cases, parents should be more vigilant when they see their children's behavior changing. Maybe hindsight is 2020, but the children need to be watched, because they're watching the wrong things. We're not vetting what they're watching online. It's encouraging them to beat records, which beating another record of killing, of unaliving people. That's what his aim was, to break somebody's record. I mean, that is terrifying. That is absolutely terrifying.
I think we need to understand that we have people who are mentally ill, very seriously mentally ill. And some of them, their mental illness goes towards being psychos, psychopaths, sociopaths, people who, I don't know whether that's mental illness or it's just evil, that they're obsessed with death, dying, destruction, taking the life of other people is nothing for them. Yeah. It's actually kind of like, entertainment almost. There's a lot of
They
things
should have
that
got
young children, a lot of young
They
people,
should have got.
they should have got.
I'm saying that that's systemic failure, because if they notice these children, this
Definitely.
person is not
Yeah.
behaving in the normal way, they should have gone to a psychiatrist. Actually, I think they did say that he did have problems, and you can see from he was his found connection in hate, that he did need a counseling and a psychiatrist. And then you have the other one who had whose record he wanted to beat, also had mental health issues, serious anxiety and all that.
Yeah.
Some compilation of serious mental health issues. Yeah.
I think even having access to those weapons, having easy access to those weapons, You know, you can imagine if those weapons were available in houses in Kenya with this kind of mental health situation we have right now. Can you imagine if every home was allowed to carry, you know, these weapons of, you know, WMDs? Yeah. And if everybody was able to carry this stuff around, it would be more accessible and probably would have many more cases of people, you know, unaliving others and even children carrying weapons to school. Yeah. So it's very possible, you know, that this if this lead was available in all our households, we'd be probably talking about a totally different thing. And when it comes to relationships, though, Ida was saying that premarital counseling with church leaders and other marriage counseling professionals is required. And then better vetting before marriage, including family background and lifestyle. Yeah, especially now that people just meet randomly outside there. You don't even know who you're meeting. You don't know their background. You don't know their past. You don't even know their family or anything about them. So it's a risk. It's a bigger risk than it was before, you know, where families could at least check the backgrounds of people. And many people now are resistant even to that, even to have their families check the backgrounds of the people that they want to marry. Yeah, I believe that there's a lot of resistance because there's a lot of family secrets. Families no longer live in communities. They live in isolation. They live like
Yeah.
nuclear. They're even nuclear.
Mm.
So they even say, don't take your secrets outside of the gate. Yeah. Don't share negative news outside of the compound. So there's a great risk of cover up. You know, people, you may not really get to know who this family is. Again, you may be offloaded with somebody who doesn't actually has a problem in the family, and that family is very happy when that person is married off. Yeah. One of their own is married off because they're troublesome people, and maybe, you know, the family is trying to find a way to get rid of them. So, but like Ida said, yes, mental health, we need to definitely go towards premarital counseling is important. But apart from that, you also need to know who your counselor is, because if you're getting premarital counseling from people who believe in ownership of, you know, women, you know, you have to be careful. Yeah, family secrets. Yeah, Ida and J. Yes, family secrets. A lot of people have family secrets. We all do have family secrets. Yes, but some of them are very dangerous because they can actually put a person at risk. Like, for example, you could be carrying a certain mental health disease that is with all the family members and you don't tell. Yeah, you don't tell, and that's really dangerous. So let me
Yeah.
also.
You know, I was
Yeah.
just thinking about
Mhm.
um the way things used to be done many years ago, and you said it's true that the younger couples, people getting married this side of the 21st century, maybe even in the later part of the 20th century, um, you know, um, not wanting background checks on their would-be spouses. Um, in times, you know, in the bygone days, it used to be done. It was part of the marriage process where your family would find out something about the person, you know, who you're going to marry, and you'd have
Mhm.
information. Even, I mean, in the African context, they'd even collect information about the clan you're from and stuff like that, and history of this and history of that. So by the time you're getting married, or even starting the first leg of a stage of the discussions about getting married, the families know quite a lot about each other, because they've
Mhm.
done their background checks. But now,
Mhm.
of course, there's a lot of resistance about that.
Mhm.
Um, and you know, from the would be the two the you know the two the people who want to get married. So I sort of discouraged. But I think the church also has tried to for instance, issues like one question that I heard a couple asking about was, it's interesting that you have marriage counseling from a Catholic priest who has never
Mhm.
experienced marriage themselves. So the question they were asking is, so how can they really counsel people if they have never experienced marriage themselves? And the question
Mhm.
again is do you have to be married to be able to counsel people about marriage, to give them
Yeah, that's a
pre-marriage
good
counseling.
question too. That's a good question too, because you may be in a toxic marriage, or you may,
So
not, your marriage may not be one that is, or maybe, I think, anyway, I don't really know. I think information can
yeah, so,
come through various
yeah,
vessels. You know what I mean? Yeah. hmm
yeah.
So
But
let
remember
me
when we were
share.
discussing about the
hmm
red flags,
Yeah, I do.
when we talked about the red flags, remember there were 8 red flags about the potentially dangerous situation, and rather red flags to show escalation towards a danger point, which
Yeah,
has
yeah,
been
yeah.
used in some Western countries to preempt or to prevent or to protect disaster happening in a situation, because they're able to predict when they see certain indicators that this is a potentially dangerous situation.
Yeah.
And one
Let's
of
look
them,
at
the
this
first
video.
one, of course, is
Susan, before you continue, let's look at these videos, and then maybe you can wrap up with those red flags and let people, at the end. Because we're just about to wind up, guys. I just wanted to show you a few more videos. Sorry for interrupting, Susan, but just so that we have the opportunity to share. Okay, so.
This guy. Today's case is one that really.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I don't know. I've just gone upstairs now. My wife's face down on the bed, so I'm going to flip her over now. But she's not. She never sits on her front. She's not moving at all. I'm calling her. Chan.
Yeah.
I'm
I
flipping
need
her
you
over now.
to look at her very carefully and tell me if she's breathing.
No, she's not.
Okay. Let me stop sharing that one and show you another one. Let me show you another one. That is a situation where a man actually calls for help when he actually has committed a murder. He himself, he has actually committed a murder. And the question is, do we believe him? How do we know? How do these people actually know? First responders, how do they know? Who is the perpetrator, who is the criminal, who is the victim? How do they know? How can you tell? And here's the situation also here with a Kenyan man who shared his murder note and committed suicide at his in-laws home before killing his wife. Sad story, but it's important for you to be aware that people are doing crazy things, and we need to be aware.
I
Another
came
Kenyan.
across this sad news of these couples from Kenya that I want to share with you. The man is called Juma, the woman is called Winnie. Both are from Kenya, a place called Nandi County. They are no more. Why? Because of domestic dispute. From the story, there were series of fights between these couples and escalated. So the woman moved to the family house. And the man sat down and wrote everything, how he is going to kill the wife. Wrote it on a sheet of paper. And I was thinking it's a joke. But to my surprise, the man followed everything and went ahead and killed the wife in the family house at night. And a few hours later on, he also killed himself. These are couples that they are having 3 children. These are couples that they are having 3 children. But because of the anger, because of fight, because of misunderstanding, they are no more. It's almost sad when I come across stories like this. But I want you to watch how the man wrote everything on a sheet of paper, how he is going to kill the wife. I just want you to watch.
I came to Kenya Police Media Platform on Facebook, and they have posted Jumo his detailed plan on how he would finish his estranged wife. And as per note, or as per his note, the police posted it on the platform, and this was the sheet of paper that Jumo wrote his plan, how he's going to end the wife life. So the police posted it, and they wrote it on their platform as well. So the requirement, according to Jumo, one, he said, who the plan.
Guys, I'm going to interrupt a little bit so that I can read this to you. I know that it's very low, it's playing in very low sound, but this is somebody who actually detailed a murder note, actually providing the requirements in terms of his tools, like his special equipment, what he's going to use, his coverage plan, his attack plan, it's unbelievable. Attack plan. Yeah. And what weapons he's gonna use, what equipment he's gonna use. I'm not even going to detail them here, but that's the point. That's the point of this.
And masked. And 2 is his special knife. And 3 is his rat and rat poison. Slash enough. And
yeah.
It says from serum.
So here is a premeditated murder. Premeditated murder. Really, really sad. Really, really, really sad. Yep, that's one. And I'm going to share another one, Susan. Just take notes. So let me share them once and for all, and then you can just respond. And guys, just respond to these, yeah? Respond to them. Here's a story of in the UK. We're going back to the UK. Today we're talking UK, we're talking Kenya, UK. I don't want to just give Kenyan examples, so you don't think we're all psychopaths here. But yeah, let's look at this story here. This one is not a video, it's just a story. 66-year-old man found guilty of murdering 37-year-old Kenyan wife in the UK. Okay, this is the man on this side. You can see him here. He's a Scotsman, and he was convicted of murdering his Kenyan wife in a violent outburst following accusations of infidelity. And by the way, she was the one accusing him of infidelity because he's a 66-year-old chartered surveyor, and he was found guilty on January 22nd, 2025, just this month, at the High Court in Glasgow for the murder of 37-year-old wife at their upscale apartment near Hamilton Racecourse in Lancashire. Okay, so the court was told the couple met in 2015. Sorry, let me wear my glasses so that you can see vizuri sana. While the lady was on holiday in while Bachman himself, I guess, he was on holiday in Thailand, and they married 2 years later. However, Daryl confided in elderly neighbors John and Violet Fisher about the physical abuse she suffered at her husband's hands. Violet Fisher, 82, testified that Daryl once revealed Bachman had taken her passport and beaten her behind closed doors. The night before the murder, Bachman, that is the man, had been out with friends in Bothwell, Lancashire, which reportedly upset Daryl. Daryl is the lady, the Kenyan lady. The jury was shown a text message she sent him, which read, "I guess you are having fun in Bothwell without your wife, cheater." Later, an argument escalated when Bachman returned home with Daryl, once again accusing him of infidelity. And during the trial, Bachman admitted to holding Daryl by the neck, causing the bruising and compression injuries that led to her death. He claimed it was unintentional and said he only realized something was wrong when he woke up the next morning to find his wife unresponsive. Emergency services were called, but Daryl was pronounced dead with significant injuries, including neck compression, a brain injury, bruising, and a rib fracture. So Judge Lord Kuby, in his remarks after the verdict, described the incidents as a tragic day and emphasized the devastating impact on Daryl's family. The person who took her life was you, her husband, who should have protected and cared for her, he said. Sentencing was postponed to allow for further reports, but Bachman faces a lengthy prison term. Yup, that is the news out there, guys. That is the news. I don't think there's anything new that I'm showing you, except just to confirm that we are living in very dangerous times. Very, very, very dangerous times. Now, in this case, I also want to show you something else that Susan is quite aware of, and she mentioned it earlier to me, and I think she'll also discuss it. I hope, Susan, you're taking notes. Thank you for Ida. Good counseling is directed by the client, not the therapist. The therapist is a moderator. Oh, really? Ah, Good counseling is directed by the client, not the therapist. The therapist is a moderator. Oh my goodness. Try and tell that one to Kenyan counselors here. Many of them don't know that. Many of them believe that as a counselor, they should be solving your problem, which is ridiculous, isn't it? Now, there's also a situation where a lady went to visit a shrine in Kenya recently, and she was found unalived. Yeah, just a day ago, just one day ago. Okay, let me share this one with you. It's as if I'm sharing something so wonderful the way I say it, right? But it's not nice. Listen, just listen for a little while. Okay, so this is
Pigiwa simu nikaambiwa amepatikana na hajapatikana kama ako uhai, alikuwa ameuawa. So mimi nilisikia vibaya sana kwa sababu ile kitu alikuwa ameenda kutafuta ni uso wa Bwana. Na huwa anaenda huko wakati mwingi sana. Sio, haikuwa mara yake ya kwanza. So hii sasa kukuja kuambiwa ameuawa, amepatikana ameuawa na ni mtu ameenda kuomba, ilifanya tusikie uchungu sana. Kwa sababu hatujui wenye walikuwa wanamuua, walikuwa na nia gani, walikuwa wamekosana nini. Na imeweka maswali mingi sana katika roho zetu. Ya kwamba mahali ambapo unaenda kutafuta uso wa Bwana, hapo ndipo unaenda kupata mambo mabaya. Hiyo kitu imeumiza roho zetu sana na inatuumiza zaidi kwa sababu ya watoto wake. Kwa sababu amekufa wakati watoto wake wanamhitaji. Hii ni ile stage watoto wake wanamhitaji zaidi. Lakini akauawa.
What this young lady is saying, apart from what was written there, is that they're very pained by her death, by this lady's, young woman's death, because she actually went to seek the face of God. She went to a shrine to pray, and then she was found, dead, with bruises that were indicative of somebody who had fallen from a height. And what pains this young lady is that she actually the victim has left young children. And she doesn't understand how someone can go out to pray and then be found unalived. Yeah, dead. It was actually very sad, very, very sad situation. And that just one day ago in Kenya, 1 day ago. I tell you, Kenya, that's why we say Kenya to the world. Gender-based violence exposed, why women and children are the target. Kenya to the world. It looks like we are actually leading the way. Violence. We've become an extremely violent society. It's sad to say that, but it's a fact. And you can see it actually here, Yeah, I think I'll stop sharing from now. I think that's enough for today. And, sorry. Let me just cancel that share now and let Susan to respond. Yeah.
Yeah. The last video about the shrine unaliving, I saw some later reports that suggest that she fell, from a great height, and she, that's why they're talking about vertical injuries. But she could have been pushed, and but they're saying she fell. So I think there's still investigations.
What about the trauma, the blunt? Oh, maybe she did. Yeah, I thought they said there was something like evidence of, but maybe if she fell, she could have fallen on rocks. Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, and also I think there's injury to the ribs and stuff like that. But I think they're trying to investigate it further, because I don't think the family is satisfied with that response. Because why would she go and to a place to pray and then commit suicide? Jumping from a height.
Yeah.
And how dangerous is this place? I mean, sadly enough, we've been having quite a few cases where people have gone to shrines and they've not come to pray and they've not come back alive. So it's really strange, because it's supposed to be quite a safe place for people to go. So for that particular case, we don't have much history apart from the fact that there are two conflicting stories. One is the jury is out. They want the investigations to go on, finding out, because the family suspects foul play. The administration, the local administration, that's the government people are saying, the investigators are saying or she fell. The jury is out on that. But the other two cases, we start with the killer calls for help. What are the do the first responders know, or how are they supposed to respond? The first responders usually are called to. When he called, they went there to rescue the situation, to help the situation. But usually, when they investigate, the police are able to pick up, telltale signs to tell that this is all a setup, and this is, a staged thing, and is trying to pretend to be innocent. There are a lot of where the killer himself will come out on the TV and look, cry and pretend to be really mournful that something like that has happened, and it's all pretense, but they're usually caught out because they always leave some clues. The history is found out about the relationship with the deceased. They're able to piece the story together. So I'm very sure that killer will be caught, because there's some arrogance also in that type of person. The one who wrote down the and then he used the same method to unalive his spouse. This usually, what I've seen is that this is used in evidence against that person, which shows or points to premeditation. Because did you say in the second case, I think, did he unalive himself? He did.
He committed suicide.
Yeah, so
and he
he
has
committed.
children. You saw that video where he has 3 children, and he meticulously planned. He meticulously planned how he was going to with his wife.
That's a murder.
Wow.
That's a murder suicide, and usually those guys are very, very controlling. Yeah. When you find that, by the way, the two cases, these are very, very controlling men, very, very controlling men. They're people who must have their way. They'll end the relationship when they're ready. If the person wants to get out of that relationship, they can't. If they try to, they're likely to get harmed. And like we were talking about, the red flag, the first stage really is that before the relationship starts. And the question is, what do you know about this person? And you can get the history of the person perhaps from what they're saying, what they tell you, what others around them who know them will tell you. There might even be a case that maybe has been cited in the newspapers or something like that, which will help you know what type of person this is. But usually what happens is they go rapidly to the second stage, where they're trying to get the person committed very quickly into a relationship so that they can control them. And they try to get commitment through trying to get you to move into their house or stay together, or they'll move into your house, pregnancy or anything like that, so that they make sure that they ensnared you and you can't get out of that relationship. After that, the coercive control behavior starts. They try to manipulate you all the time, and then make things really difficult. When you try to get away, they can even or try to say they're going to self-harm themselves and stuff like that. The challenge is, of course, when it gets to a point where they go through a change in thinking, and when they go through a change in thinking, that's when they start to plan to harm. And and then after that, it can escalate very quickly and end up in somebody not being alive. And those are the stages that that are being sort of followed by police in the West. Even when they in some, like I think in Britain, they do like review cases after a situation where there's been domestic violence. So they review them, and they found that there's normally a pattern. In fact, the argument is that this rage or sudden loss of temper, this red mist is not true. Usually the intention, they're very planned initiative, they're very planned things. This person plans actually to harm. And as you can see from those two examples we've talked about so far, the first one decided he was going to do this, and then he was going to call the people for help, call the responders for help, and sort of pretend to be innocent so that they wouldn't look at him first. But that's a mistake, because regardless, the police will always look at the intimate partner first, and to rule them out of being a murder suspect. The one who wrote down what he was going to do, that is sheer premeditation. You can see in this context, the children were not even important. It's like the children were outsiders, because he unalived his wife and unalived himself, and he didn't really care what was going to happen to the children. This case of the 66-year-old Scotsman and the 37-year-old Kenyan wife. Yeah, here are the red flags. And when we're talking about systemic failure, she reported that there were physical abuse. I don't know whether she reported it to the police or anything like that. But there are some people who knew that she was facing this.
She reported it to the neighbors. She reported it to the neighbors, elderly neighbors.
Yeah, and you see, this is when now the role of the neighbors is really important, because they're the ones who can really call the police, because in this type of situation, maybe she was too terrified to do it herself. So if the neighbors called the police, they would have been able to maybe help a bit. I'm not sure, but usually neighbors are really good at raising alarms, and then the police come.
Yeah, this was after she had already been abused. She talked about it like an incident that had happened in the past.
Okay, so it was not a live incident. Yeah.
No,
okay.
It was not live.
Usually,
yeah,
like I was saying, usually the abuse is usually the unaliving doesn't just happen like that. There's usually a history of abusive behavior, and this is a red flag. The fact that there was physical abuse, and I think perhaps now in that context, that's why the neighbors were telling the police. Actually, she had told us that there was a previous incident where it had happened. Also, the fact that he took her passport. He was trying to control her, to completely restrict her movement, so that she couldn't fly perhaps back to Kenya or fly to another country. And so he was trying to make sure that she can't leave. And that's what that is all about, controlling somebody to make sure you have this power over them. The other thing is holding by the neck and saying it was unintentional. In fact, if and anybody listening, if you are held by the neck, that is a very bad sign. You need to get out of that home. If you're held by the neck, because the research shows that is very close. The next step will be an actual strangulation. So when he says that he held by the neck and it was unintentional, and that's he realized he had strangled her. The fact is, it's very difficult to break that hyoid muscle or bone, and takes a lot of force, and not just after a few seconds. It actually have to hold on with a lot of pressure, and very hard for a while. It's not easy to break it and to cause the strangulation. So when you see that neck compression, and then there's a rib fracture, definitely, you can tell that he actually did intend to harm. And it is not the first time. By the time somebody's holding somebody by the neck, they have done several terrible things to that person. So anybody listening, holding by the neck is a red flag, because that person is getting
Maroon
really
flag.
comfortable.
5 red flags.
Yeah.
5 red flags. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you have to, why would you hold somebody by the neck? That's not a normal position to hold. So, and the fact that he's holding it and squeezing, that is somebody who can actually cause you a lot of danger at the end of the day. So when we, throughout this evening, we sort of looked at systemic failures. And the question is what is your role when you're faced with a situation where your neighbor is being subjected to, you can hear the noise, all the signs there's domestic abuse going on. What roles can you play so that it doesn't end up so tragically? Because we've seen from the videos and even the cases we've talked about how tear jerking they are, how painful they are just to watch. And look at in the last case was the case of the Kenyan who unalived himself and his wife, the one who wrote down the note. He's left children orphaned with no plan, because
Yeah.
he's had a quarrel with the mother,
Same
because the
situation
thing
with
is,
the Nigerian guy. You see?
yeah,
He doused his wife with petrol and killed her without a thought about about his children, leaving his children without their mother. That's really amazing. What
yeah,
is it? It was anger. He was in anger. And the advice that he was given was that if you cannot control your anger, don't get married or don't get into a relationship if you cannot control your
yeah, but
anger.
the research shows that
Mm.
actually when men do that to women, it's not a red mist. It is something he has planned over a period of time. So he just looks for a trigger, and then that is the
Okay.
opportunity that will be taken.
Oh, I see.
So it's not a red mist situation. That is, they're saying, this professor was saying it's actually a myth, because they have done investigations and researched a lot of men who are actually in jail for unaliving their spouses, and they found that it's actually some level of planning that has taken place before it actually happens. And so even that guy dowsing, he had been saying that he was going to burn his wife. The children heard him saying it, and they reported that's what he said. So it is actually something that somebody has planned to do. They even know where to get the things they're going to do, and there's just a question of executing their plans. So let's be our brother's keeper. We keep saying that. Let's not be part of the systemic failures. Let's do our role to really be our brother's keeper, to sort of guide each other, to talk to your friends if they're going through that, and sort of point them in the right direction. As we were told, is that by, is it Fia or is it Ida, who said that the counselor sort of it's the client who directs, is it?
Yes, that's
And
Ida.
the yeah.
And she has said
uh,
something else as well. Ida is also saying here that um, she's saying, let me see. Ida, you see, these days I can't read without my glasses. So bad. She says that the note is actually a suicide note that ended up as a murder suicide event. She says, we use the crisis intervention program to prevent the follow through if the note is known prior to his actual actions. So
yeah.
if that note is found, if somebody, because some people actually leave notes around, or they give
Yeah.
their intentions, in advance. And Ida also says, I worked as an advocate for battered women for a few years. Oh, yes, I remember that, Ida. Research shows that victims of domestic violence will go back to the abused about 9 times before they consider leaving them. Why
Yeah.
is that? Please explain that to me, Ida. Please. Why do people go back to their abusers? Please explain that to us. Why, Ida? Why? Because this is actually the problem. Because they've also said that women, was it you, Susan, who told us that women leave 7 times, or they say that they're going to leave like 7 times before they actually finally do leave? I think I read
Yeah.
it somewhere, or maybe Susan said it, earlier.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. That's that's actually the case. It's because they're very connected. The person has controlled their mind. There's so much fear. Consequences are worse if you fail to get away. So they just rather go back. So there's the spouse who's controlling them has such control over the mind that there's so much fear that the consequences of being caught. Say you don't follow through and they catch up with you.
Okay.
They're more afraid of that. What is going to happen?
And
Uh,
what about just financial dependency, economic dependency? perhaps.
Yeah, that could be a reason too. That could be a
Yeah.
reason too.
Because I think a
And
lot of these women who
I
are
was reading some.
abused, many of them are, but many of them are also working. Many of them are actually earning income, but then they also get taken advantage of. Some of them get taken advantage of, and they had to give away their income, for example, or their check to their spouse. And they get used to that, to not having to make decisions, financial decisions, even if they're going to work and bringing the money.
Actually, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
professional women are abused by their husband. Yeah. And it's so, in fact, there
Wow.
was a
And it's
time I
economic
was,
abuse, is it? Is it mostly economic abuse?
no, no, she has her own money, but it's a way of like controlling. No, she has her own income. She's a professional in her own right, and she's abused. When she gets home, she's abused. She's physically abused by her spouse. And so it's a complex thing. It's not. In fact, I know that we argue that economic empowerment of women is what's going to save them from the situation. Yes, it may help them to get out of the situation, but how do you answer the question that there are women who are able to leave, who have, if you're talking about it being driven by money, that's why they can't leave. They have the
Yeah.
resources to leave, but they don't. But they don't.
Yeah. And
And
Ida agrees with you,
it's
Susan. Ida agrees. She's saying it's actually the failure of systems. They are afraid that they'll be worse off. Isn't that what you're just saying? They believe that they'll be worse
yeah,
off.
yeah, yeah. In fact, it's really scary for them because they're used
Mm-hmm.
to this sort of like violent space, and then they're not sure that they'll actually be rescued from that space, and that this person will never come near them again. In fact, some of the results of women escaping and getting away are really bad. There's a
Mm-hmm.
true story called The Burning Bed, and I think it was shown as a documentary or a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And this lady eventually, because she tried to get away from this man so many times, it was so brutal. When he was asleep, she set the bed on fire, and it's called The Burning Bed. And
Oh.
she drove off with her children.
Hmm.
So the problem with this type of living in this type of scenario is the effect it has on somebody's mental health. So
Mm-hmm.
she was in this desperate state where she was doing it to survive, to keep her children and herself alive. And so it was like, it's either me or you, like you're in a war zone. Actually, domestic violence is very serious. Like people who are recovering from it is like this. Is it post-traumatic stress disorder?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
really serious.
PTSD.
It
Mm-hmm.
completely.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very serious. Not able even to think or process information in the right way. So there's a lot of recovery that they have to undergo. And I agree that it's true that would have been. It depends on when that note was found.
Mm-hmm.
But the police seem to have found that note after he had committed the suicide, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
After they were dead, and
Mm-hmm.
it sort of is used as evidence to show it was intentional, that what he did is that she didn't kill herself, that he killed
Mm-hmm.
her and then he killed himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah. So relationships are really complex, and we need to make sure that we're not. We can do something to sort of alleviate the situation. If you have knowledge about it, find ways to report it, so at least that person has an opportunity, a choice. They have a chance to get away from
Mm-hmm.
a relationship which is so dangerous to them.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
Yeah.
when it's a prolonged thing, the children are the ones who suffer when they're there. We've seen at least two of the cases we've looked at where children have been orphaned. In fact, it's called, in technical terms, double orphan, because both parents are no longer there. And one is not there out of choice. His life has been taken away from them. So systemic failure is real, and it can be something that needs to be looked at in all angles, and so as to reduce the incidences of sex and sexual and gender-based violence. That's all from me.
This is one of the saddest, most frightening, most informative, and interesting shows I think that we have done so far with you, Susan. I think maybe it's because it's a new year, and now we also have Ida Nje, who's also contributed a lot, and Fia. Ida's contributions have been really useful because she's talking from a professional point of view as well, just like you are, Susan. But for her, having counseled and worked with women who are battered, and she says, yes, PTSD. Also remember that most women are killed after they leave the abuser, just like you said, Susan. And yeah, we may look at it like, why doesn't she just leave? Why is she staying there? You're a sucker for abuse. You're weak personality. You're lazy. You don't want to work. You don't want to look after the children yourself. You become a dependent. But actually, there is real fear in a lot of women. Women actually have fear, and good reason to fear too, because the vengeance that is in these men, because of men don't like to fail. I think they look at many men, many married men, look at marriage as a conquest, as So if it doesn't work, then he looks like a failure to the society, and it could also impact even his job and his standing in the community. So I think it's too much for them. And when men are ruled by their ego, then it can be very dangerous situation. I can see how that can be. And no wonder whenever I hear of women who have left their families or their husbands, it's what they do is that they actually leave first, and then they inform their friends that they're leaving, that they've left. They don't. I actually have a friend who worked as a hairdresser, and there was a lady who was that one of her clients who came to have her hair done, and she wanted these tiny little braids or something. She wanted an intricate hairstyle that was going to last a long time. Okay, and she didn't even tell my hairdresser friend, who's so close to her, about her intention. And the next thing, my hairdresser friend is receiving a phone call from this woman's husband, who happens to be, they were in the same, the way they live in estates, these hair salons, which are in estates. The man is coming to find out whether my friend is aware where his wife is and his children, because he's come back home late at night as he's used to, and he hasn't found them. And my friend is at pains to say, actually, I have no idea where they are. No, I don't know where they were. They came over, yes, she came over to do her hair, but I haven't heard from her. And this lady kept quiet for 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks, she called my friend from America. she told her, you know what? I didn't want to tell you that I was leaving, but I was leaving. That I didn't want to tell you. I wanted things to settle down, and I knew he was going to come and ask you where I am. And I'm just telling you as my friend that I have moved with my children to the US. Yeah, and my friend will never forget. And she tells me that this, because by the way, I think my friend also did the same thing. When she left in silence. She also was in a situation, and she left in silence with her children and traveled to a different country. This is happening a lot. A lot of Kenyan women and even African women are actually leaving African countries and going to the West. Many of them do that to escape their relationships, to escape their toxic environments, toxic marriages, dangerous marriages. So putting a distance between themselves and their abusers or people who they imagine might end up abusing them in future. So anyway, we've had a long chat, guys, and it's time to go to bed. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much, Ida. You've been so wonderful. I really hope one day you're going to join us in studio. Next time, if you want to join the studio, you just let me know, and we can probably do a show on a Saturday or Sunday when you're available. But Ida, your contributions have been fabulous. I have to make sure that you're on this show every time. Fear as well, fabulous, always there with us and also contributing a lot, especially from the perspective of somebody who, lives in the UK, a diaspora living in the UK, and who has knowledge about Nigeria and Nigerian relationships and couples and what's going on back at home. And I think it's wonderful for us guys to talk. Let's invite each other. Every Friday we'll be talking about relationships, and so it's gonna be interesting for many people. But also on Sundays, when we can, not every Sunday, but when we can, we'll be discussing mental health. And then on weekdays like Monday and Wednesday, we'll be discussing politics, geopolitical issues. Okay. So thank you so much for your time. And Susan, have a good evening. And until either Sunday or Monday, I wish you a lovely weekend. And thank you for your time. Thank you again, Ida and Fia, and good day and good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Keep safe. Bye-bye.